I'm naturally, for me, I'm naturally just not good at asking people for stuff all the time. And so at first it feels like you're asking a realtor, hey, can you do me a favor? Hey, can you meet with me to go to coffee? Things like that. So you feel like you're always asking people for favors because you're coming into the game and you don't have established relationships. People aren't referring you business. So if you can get past that fear of man's faces and that fear of like rejection, that's one thing that I'm still working on, but it's something that is really key for a new loan officer is, hey, just keep doing what you know to do. Do what's good, do what's right, what you know works, what you've been taught. And that, those principles are gonna eventually, there's gonna be, fruit from those seeds that are being sown. There's times where, you're getting a call from a realtor at 8, 9 p.m. And so really what I'm honing in on is what really needs to be done, what constitutes a fire and what doesn't. And really the more that you learn that, it helps with the management of your family time. So there's times where it's like, my wife's name is Brittany. I say, Brittany, hey, I really need to take this call. And then there's other times where I really don't need to take the call. And so really learning, at first it was like every call I have to take. And now it's been more of like, okay, well, actually I'm learning what really needs to be done now and what can wait till later. And that's a real key in balance in the family life, is identifying quickly what is and needs to be taken care of right away as opposed to what could wait. I've had people tell me that I've been transparent with them and personable, and that they like the fact that I've taken the time to speak with them. They've come from, I won't mention any names, but bigger institutions where they've maybe already gotten pre-approved, and they felt like they didn't get that care or that time with the loan officer really explaining them the breakdown of fees and costs associated with stuff. So just really taking the time with each and every buyer to explain everything and go above and beyond to be fully transparent and honest with them, I think goes a long way. My goal right now is just to learn, man, just to learn. I would say 80% is absorption. The other 20% is, actively like reading and doing that other stuff. A lot of times, if you're busy, you don't have time to like, sit there and read a book on how to be a great LO. It's like, you gotta just do it and make mistakes. And I've made mistakes, and like, that's how I've learned quickly, because I've made some pretty big mistakes early on. And from those, Scott was like, man, I made those same mistakes. That means that you're gonna be a great LO if you can learn from these ones, because they were critical ones. And so I've learned from them, and that's really what's propelled me is the failure, to be honest. Because not having any background in it, not knowing anything about it, dude, just because you can pass a test doesn't mean that you know how to be a loan officer, everything that goes into it. There's so much. What we do and what we strive to do at SN is like, we have the ability that some of the bigger banks, as like, they move like the Titanic, whereas we move like very freely, like a kayak or something like that. But it doesn't mean that we don't have the bandwidth or the ability and the backing to be able to do what those guys do. So we can do what they can do, big investor loans and 30-year fixed jumbo products, and we can compete with pricing on there. But then we'll also go to the guy who has a 580 credit score and take the time to spend with him and be like, hey, let's get your score up to a 620, 640. We'll work with you, take you by the hand, we'll walk you through this process and kind of stick with them in that way. So we're not too good for anybody. We're not too big, and we're not too small to where we can't compete. So I think that's what kind of sets us apart. And realtors come to me and say, hey, I've heard about SN, you guys do things differently. What can you do for this self-employed borrower, or things like that. And so just really knowing what we offer, it makes us stand out. I would be lying to say that just because basketball stopped and competing there, that my competitive spirit has died. Still very competitive. I've always just loved practicing, and that's one thing that with basketball, if you want to be great, you gotta love the work. You gotta love to get better. So just carrying that over into the loan game now is like, hey, I gotta work on this part of my game too. I gotta know the guidelines. I gotta know everything that goes into it, so that when I'm performing for a borrower or a buyer, that I'm giving them what they need. And so, yeah, definitely that competition, it comes from, just putting in that hard work. Once I talked to Scott at Security National, we kind of just both figured out it was going to be a good fit. And so once I started studying for the exam and figuring out all this stuff, I kind of caught a passion for it, and was like, man, I think I could do this. It honestly happened pretty quick for me, and it was the first time since dealing with basketball that I was like, man, this is something I could see myself doing, because other than basketball, there was really nothing that ever stuck. But as soon as I got in here, Security National, and was working with Scott, and figuring out that I'm actually helping people with the greatest asset in their life, a very important emotional process, and I saw the impact that I was having on people's lives and in the discussions that I was having with them. I was like, okay, this is something that I could see myself doing for a very long time. And now I'm just like loving it.